is fresh hope for Jet Airways, which was grounded in April last year. After 3 failed rounds of bidding under the IBC, its lenders have finally approved an offer that was made by a consortium comprising of London-based financial advisory firm Calrock Capital and UAE-based businessman by the name of Murari Lal Jalan over the weekend. Now, the good news is that this offers the airline a chance to fly again if, of course, approved by the NCLT. And the not-so-good news is the steep 90% plus haircut which is involved for its lenders. Now, what prompted them to agree to this kind of an offer, and how soon will the airline be able to fly again? What assets remain for the new owners to be able to begin afresh? Now, for all of this and more, we are joined by a very special guest, the man who's been tasked with steering the revival of Jet Airways under the bankruptcy law. Ashish Acharya, the National Head for Restructuring Services at Grant Thornton and the resolution professional for the airline, to discuss its revival plan. Ashish, thank you so much for taking time out and joining us here on CNBC-TV18. To begin with, like I said, there were 3 failed rounds, and I believe the lenders were always willing to agree for a liquidation, and then comes this offer. Were you really surprised with this outcome?
It's not a surprise, but certainly it's very pleasing. I think, it's been a long journey. It's been a difficult journey for me, my team, who have worked tirelessly through this period. So I think we are very happy that we have achieved this very significant milestone where the committee of creditors and the lenders, in their commercial wisdom, have selected one revival plan. And as you said, after 3 rounds, we have had some 12 or 13, bidders or potential resolution applicants in the past, but we couldn't secure a plan. But 4th time round, and that too during, when the pandemic hit the aviation sector. Despite that, we were able to get not 1 but 2 interested applicants, and one of them has now been, chosen as the preferred option. So yeah, it is particularly pleasing to be where we are today, but it's not time to sit back. We still have things to do.
Well, speaking of those things to do, what will be the next steps? Of course, the NCLT nod is all important. That is pending. How soon will you be filing, and when do you expect Jet will be able to fly again?
So, as you said, we need to file for the NCLT's approval, who will check the compliance and the, all the mandatory compliance of the plan and whether the process was carried out properly or not. And once they give the approval, that's when, the implementation steps would start. An important aspect of that, of course, is, I've mentioned this earlier, that getting the airport slots and the traffic rights, that's a very important aspect for Jet Airways to fly again. And, these are allotted by the Ministry of Civil Aviation, and, it's with rules and regulations around this. So they are going to have to, look at the proposals that the business plan for revival, which the new owners have set out, or new proposed owners have set out. And based on that, the expectation is that the slots which were earlier enjoyed by Jet Airways would be returned back. And this, I'm sure the government will be, very supportive of this, because, the way the civil aviation market is growing, we need another airline and, take Jet Airways back to its original glory.
Well, absolutely. Before we get back to the assets that remain with Jet Airways, can you tell us briefly about who these new owners are? Because from whatever I could find out, they don't have any prior, experience in the field of aviation.
That's right. So, while the consortium members do not have any direct aviation experience, so they're not, they have not been owners of any airlines or flying any airlines, I'm aware that one of them has got some airport project somewhere in the CIS countries which they are investing in. But nonetheless, that's not something which one would really rely on. I think the consortium members comprise of Mr. Jalan, as you mentioned earlier, and one serial investor, Mr. Florian Frisch, who has this outfit called Calrock Capital. They are together. They've come together to give a revival plan for Jet Airways, and they are the ones who are going to sort of see the revival, put the money, working capital that's required, and they've sort of put out a good management team a management team which would comprise of the experienced, aviation players that would be required to kind of, restart the airline. Of course, the customer base, the brand, the goodwill that Jet carried is going to help them, will give them the tailwinds. But there's still a lot of work that needs to be done to get the aircrafts back, on the ground. So,
okay. So, has the senior management already been identified? For instance, are they looking to partner with someone in the aviation sector, any of the existing airlines? What is the plan going forward?
So, Ritu, let me just caveat, the process is still going on. I cannot talk too specific about any details in the plan, but I can tell you, broadly speaking, that they do have a well laid out business plan that, which has been vetted by, advisors who have looked at, what the steps are going to be going forward. And certainly they have a management team, which, they have spelled out, who would be directly responsible for this going forward.
But will they be partnering with any other existing airlines? Is that something that is on the table given their lack of experience in the sector?
I think for any airline, especially with their plans, as they have said that they want to take Jet back to its old glories, Jet 2.0 will comprise of domestic as well as international routes. You need to partner with other global airlines. The interline arrangements like Jet used to have earlier with, with Air France, KLM, or with, Etihad and various others. There were a number of interline arrangements which Jet had. And I know that they have spoken to a few of them already, and they have kind of an in-principle, understanding. So the airline industry overall works on this basis of interline arrangements where passengers are carried here. So I am sure they will have those arrangements back in place.
Okay, can you tell us a little more about what the resolution plan entails in terms of the creditors also? There is, I think, 35,000 crores of overall claims, and the banks alone have about 7,500 crores. Will the new owners assume the debt? How is it expected to be serviced? If you could give us some guidance on that. And also, we understand they've proposed to offer equity to banks as well. Could you confirm that?
Ritu, as I said, I'll not get into very specifics on what they have offered to the banks, but
broadly,
I can tell you
if you could, yes.
Sure. So, the numbers that you're quoting from the list of creditors that I've laid out publicly, see, there's a very important distinction. You have to see what is the claims that we've been received vis-a-vis what has been admitted. So there's a big difference between that as well. The claim that has been admitted is actually a much relatively smaller number. I wouldn't say it's a small number. It's a relatively smaller number. And as you said, the financial creditors have about 7,500 crores, which was due to them. This comprises of lenders in India, lenders outside, as well as some financial lessors. The plan for revival is not based on an upfront recovery. It is not an upfront recovery tool, this IBC. This is truly how a resolution should be like. There is the banks continue to remain invested in the company's revival. They will see it through, there is certain amount of, upfront payment, and there's a deferred consideration. And of course, there'll also be an upside because, and that's by way of some equity interest in the company for the lenders as well.
Okay, so you are confirming that lenders have been offered equity in both Jet Airways and Jet Privilege. Can we take that on record? Yes, that is part of the offer that they've made?
So yes, there is an equity interest which remains with the lenders as well.
Okay. You were speaking to us about the assets that remain with Jet Airways. If we're talking about restarting the airline, I understand they have about 12 planes. How many more would have to be leased or bought? And what is the plan when it comes to the routes? Have you already applied to the Civil Aviation Ministry for those?
So there are two questions in that. So first, regarding the aircrafts, I think you're right. We have, about 12 aircrafts owned by Jet. Out of that, a couple of them are outside India. The rest are currently in India under my custody. The revival plan, what they have laid out involves a staggered growth. So they will need to bring in more aircrafts as they grow. And these aircrafts which currently remain with Jet are largely the wide-bodied aircraft which are used for long haul. Within India, they will need, the narrow-bodied, their fleet may comprise of, the 737s or the Airbuses. Those are the ones that you require mainly for domestic flights between 1 to 5 hours of sort of stage length, as we call it. So they have plans to bring in more modern aircrafts and slowly ramp it up, over a period of time.
Okay, is there a timeline that they're working with by when Jet will be able to fly again? Are we working within a, say, 4 to 5 month horizon?
Absolutely. So that's certainly, the expectations. As I said, a couple of those conditions need to be fulfilled first. One is, of course, the NCLT's nod, very important aspect, and then the slots and the traffic routes, which we have already reached out to the relevant authorities. I've kept them updated throughout this process, informing them of where we are and what is expected by both the bidders. So both the applicants, that was a similar expectation. So I think now that we have reached this milestone, I think we can engage. I think the successful applicant can engage directly as well to see how we can quickly expedite this. But certainly, the expectation is that in the next, 4 to 6 months, one should be able to see Jet back in the skies again.
Well, that's very good news. 4 to 6 months timeline for Jet Airways to fly again. There are also parallel cases ongoing when it comes to the investigative agencies. Now, some in the market worry that perhaps that may derail or lead to lengthy litigations in court when NCLT finally has to approve the plan and hand it over to the new owners. What is your own expectation there?
Ritu, I certainly hope that will not be an impediment, because it has been clarified by the government. There's an amendment in the IBC that has been brought in as well. Yes, there are investigations which are going on parallelly, but that's all historical, and it's very clear that the new owners would not carry any baggage or any legacy issues from the past, provided, of course, they are not in any way found to be connected, etc. And we know there are some issues that are being dealt with in some other cases, but by and large, in principle, the IBC allows a kind of a clean slate. It's called a clean slate theory, and the new buyers should not and need not be sort of affected by what's really happening, what happened in the past. Yes, there would be some support, information that may be required, and I'm sure there should be no hesitation, as I have been doing over the last 15 months or so since I've been involved here.
Okay.
Whatever information, etc., is possible will be provided.
Okay, Ashish, I really want to ask you what happens to the employees that are still on the payroll of Jet Airways. Firstly, what is the status? How many have resigned? How many remain? And what have the new owners said in terms of compensating those that have not been paid, even 6 months before the airplane was grounded?
So there are lots of questions in your, one statement there, but, there are different aspects to it. So there are unpaid employees who did not get their salaries before the insolvency started. So they have filed their claims. The claims have been verified and admitted by me, as the case may be. And those would be dealt with and have been dealt with as per the requirements of the IBC. So the new plan addresses, what should be rightfully the eligibility for the workmen and employees based on the claims that have been filed. We have still about 4,000 approximate number of employees who are still on the payroll of the company. This was about 11,000, 12,000, I think, when we started last year. But as people have found alternate engagements and they've gone on to take up that, but we still have about 4,000 odd people.
But just the very last question, Ashish, what would you say to the employees that still remain with Jet Airways in terms of compensation? I understand, of course, with the waterfall mechanism, perhaps there may not be much for them, but what would you say to them?
So there's some very interesting, sort of propositions that the new owners have, proposed owners have laid out. They have spoken about creating a separate sort of employee-owned organization which can offer services into Jet Airways, and they would get kind of the first preference, from the company. So they have been very supportive on how they want to deal. And there are certain other things which, I don't want to get into too many details there. But what I'm trying to tell you is that, the attention and the care towards employees has certainly been a subject matter of discussion because, that's something which is important and very relevant. And I'm sure that, once the details are out and when they come into the driver's seat, they will be engaging with the various, employee, organizations and representatives to find the best foot forward.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Ashish, thank you very much for taking time out and joining us here on CNBC-TV18. And we wish you and the airline all the very best and do hope to see it in the skies in the next 4 to 6 months, as you said. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.